stumbled across Carnivore and I thought, this is absolutely nuts. How can I take out all plants? Like, where am I going to get all my antioxidants from? Like, where am I going to get my vitamin C and my fiber? But I decided to just try it for 30 days. I figured 30 days is not going to kill me. All of my gut symptoms disappeared. I mean, completely disappeared. And that had never happened before. I love the idea of trying to live as close to our ancestors the way that they may have lived as we can, being close to nature, doing the grounding, doing the light, all the things. But the reality is we live in this modern world and there's no escaping it. We're not going to go off and live in the forest. And even if we did, there's probably...
Hello, you guys. Today we have Maili Costa. If you don't follow her on Instagram, Maili, what's your Instagram handle again?
It is Health Coach Mize.
Health Coach Mize. We've been talking for a while, and I wanted to invite her here on the YouTube channel. So a little bit about Maili. She's a certified keto, carnivore, nutrition, and applied quantum biology health coach. So there's been a lot of circadian rhythm, leptin resistance type of stuff in this space that people are starting to realize the importance of that. So I wanted to bring Maili on to talk about it. She's also a certified running coach. So all you runners out there, you're going to want to hear what she has to say. She has a background in classical ballet and ultra endurance running. And she actually has overcome lifelong gut health issues, hypothyroid symptoms, athletic overtraining, and adrenal fatigue. I'm going to pick your brain on that stuff. And then difficulty managing and maintaining weight through diet and lifestyle changes. And now she strives to help other women optimize their own health and weight loss with foundational diet and lifestyle strategies. Welcome, Maili.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so good to finally meet you.
This is one of the things I love about doing this YouTube channel is there's so many people that we've been DMing for like years now at this point. And then now we actually get to have a legit conversation and talk with each other. So yeah, maybe let's just start out. I mean, I gave a little brief introduction. Let's just start out how you ended up where you're at now and like your little health journey, what were you struggling with and what brought you to the health space?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I will try and keep it a condensed story. We all have our long stories, but mine really started with gut health issues. I've had gut health issues since I was a very, very little kid. And all of the conventional doctors would just diagnose me with IBS, IBD. It's just, I've gone through phases of having really, really disruptive issues with my digestion. And so I decided to be a vegetarian when I was 10, not really thinking about the gut stuff. That was kind of more animal welfare based. But as I got older, I started thinking, well, you know, if I vegetarian harder, if I plant-based harder, this is going to help my gut problems. I need to eat more fiber. Decided to become a vegetarian when I was 10 years old. And I was heavily involved in ballet at that time. So I thought that I was saving the animals by being a vegetarian. And then as I got older and more involved with ballet, it became about weight. And eventually I started thinking, well, if I vegetarian harder, then, you know, this should help resolve my gut issues. If I eat more fiber, it'll help resolve my gut issues, which was never the case for me. It always made it worse. So yeah, I went from 10 years old until I was in my probably mid-20s as a plant-based eater, or, you know, different versions of vegetarian. I guess at the time I'd include dairy, I'd eliminate dairy, I'd have eggs, I'd not have eggs, that kind of thing. And then when I got pregnant with my first child, and I had a really crazy traumatic pregnancy and birth. But anyway, after having him, I started having symptoms of hypothyroidism. So along with my gut health issues, hypothyroidism started to flare. I didn't know what it was at the time. In fact, I went to our family doctor and I said, I'm feeling like I'm getting deathly ill every single day. I feel like I'm coming down with the flu. I am tired to my bones, like not just new mom tired, not, oh, I could take a nap, but like I can barely function. And so she had me do a test where I swallowed water and she palpated my thyroid. And she said, well, your thyroid feels fine. So all I can tell you is just keep moving. So I just kept moving the best that I could and realized at some point I was going to have to figure all of these things out on my own. So I went through the naturopathic doctors, the functional doctors, the acupuncturists, all the practitioners you can possibly think of.
Yeah.
And I was still plant-based. I was starting to include a little bit more animal foods, but primarily plant-based, very, very heavy on fiber. So I started seeing all of these practitioners, and I'd go through supplement protocols and all kinds of testing and ozone therapy, all kinds of different things. And,
Oh, wow.
and some of them were really helpful, but it never lasted. So after the birth of my second child, I was still having the hypothyroid symptoms, still having the gut issues. And I also started suffering from debilitating anxiety. And I was like, this is not going to work. I need to be able to leave the house with my babies. So I really started digging into diet at that point. And I discovered the paleo diet. So I started eliminating more and more processed foods, focusing on whole foods, got rid of the grains. I got rid of most dairy, not all dairy, but the legumes, the basic paleo. And I felt a little bit better. So I had my daughter when I was 31, I believe. Yeah, so 31. And yeah, so I did paleo for a while and it was helpful. Didn't really resolve the gut issues. It did help a little bit with the anxiety. I didn't notice a whole lot of difference with my thyroid symptoms. At that point, I had started seeing various doctors that specialized in thyroid. I saw a thyroid specialist. He put me on different medications. None of them really seemed to help and only seemed to aggravate the symptoms. And then I found keto. I was also starting to run at this point, which also helped with the anxiety. And, when you're a long distance runner, you hear carbs, carbs, carbs. And so I'm looking at this keto diet going, okay, well, I think this might help with my anxiety. It might help with my thyroid. It might help with my weight, but how do I run and be keto? And I found some sort of fringe low carb runners blogging at that time. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. So I went from paleo to keto as an endurance runner, and it was actually one of the best things that I've ever done. It really started helping with my gut symptoms. I noticed some improvements with my thyroid symptoms. I was able to lose some weight. It was a long transition with the running. I definitely took a few steps backwards in terms of running and, speed and endurance and things like that. But after 6 months, I was like, wow, I feel better than I ever have. But eventually my gut symptoms started coming back, and that became very evident in long races, which was really, really awful.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, it's kind of a runner's worst nightmare. So, fast forward, eventually I stumbled across carnivore, and I thought, this is absolutely nuts. How can I take out all plants? Like, where am I going to get all my antioxidants from? Like, where am I going to get my vitamin C and my fiber? But I decided to just try it for 30 days. I figured 30 days is not going to kill me. And so I did carnivore for 30 days and all of my gut symptoms disappeared. I mean, completely disappeared. And that had never happened before. I could kind of get it under control where I was comfortable, but they were never completely gone. So I thought, wow, this is amazing. I'm healed. And I think after that, I got a little cocky and I started reintroducing foods. And I'm like, well, I can eat some fiber. I'm feeling pretty good. Christmas rolled around and someone sent us a pie, a fully sugar, gluten, the works, amazing pecan pie. And I was like, well, I'm healed. So I'm going to have a piece of the pie. And I felt okay. So I had some more the next day, and then more neighbors were bringing by, cupcakes and cakes and cookies, all the fun holiday treats. And I just sort of went to town for a couple weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, I was having symptoms of what I thought at the time was a heart attack.
Oh my gosh. What were those symptoms?
Tingling down my arms. I was having vision problems, tingling in my face. I was having what felt like panic attacks, but they were short. It would kind of like bubble up. I'd be sitting there, watching a movie, doing something that's calm and relaxing. And all of a sudden my heart would be pounding and I was dripping sweat and shaking. And was like, what is going on? And so I went to urgent care and they said, you need to go to the emergency room. So I went to
Yeah.
the emergency room and I figured they're going to tell me, well, you're just, it's the holidays, you're stressed, too much sugar, probably having a panic attack. And they actually ended up admitting me because they needed to rule out a stroke based off
Oh
of the
my God.
symptoms I was having. So I spent 4 days in the hospital having every test imaginable. And during that time, I realized the only thing different was that I had started eating gluten again. So that was kind of my big, huge wake up call. I got out of the hospital. It took me almost a month to completely detox that gluten, or at least the
Wow.
symptoms that I was feeling from it. And after that, I was like, I'm going to stick to a meat-based diet. And so I've kind of gone back and forth with carnivore and ketovore but even doing that, the gut symptoms came back. And I was like, I'm at my wit's end. I was about to drop another few $1,000s on some practitioner who had some big, gut protocol because I didn't know what to do anymore. And that's when I found quantum biology and circadian biology and started implementing circadian health practices. And that is what I think the combination of a meat-based diet and living a circadian friendly lifestyle is what has pretty much eliminated my gut symptoms, my hypothyroid symptoms, has helped me maintain my weight and just live a pretty happy life.
Wonderful. Oh, I love this. Okay. So, like vegetarian for most of your life, transitioned to a paleo. Some things improve, but not all the way. Keto, a lot more improves, but still like here and there. Tried out carnivore, everything's better. You get cocky, bring in some carbs, and then it's like, okay, carnivore's better. And then quantum, it's like perfect. It's like everything. Would you say that there's anything you're still working on, or do you feel like you're living your best life?
I mean, I feel like I'm always a work in progress. There's
Mhm.
there's there's always a little something to work on. I've also been working with a homeopath, and that's been mind blowing and amazing and so wonderful. But it's also helped me learn that we have layers of healing that we go through. So I have gotten to places where I do feel like I'm living my best life, and then something will kind of bubble up to the surface again. And I
Yeah.
used to think of this as a setback. And now I realize from learning some of these homeopathy principles is that it's actually a good thing. It's you're getting to the deeper layers of healing that need to happen. So yeah, no, I mean, I do feel like I'm living a pretty amazing life, I have to say, but
Good.
I don't feel that I'm at the finish line, and I don't know if I'll ever be at the finish line. We're getting, we're getting older, things change in our
Yeah.
lives, situations change. So yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say with that, one of the things in coaching is helping the client to realize, do they have a realistic goal?
Mhm.
So when you talk about, will I ever be at that finish line? Well, what is that finish line for some of us? Is it like how you were when you were 20 and you could eat anything and not gain a pound, right? Like, is that a realistic goal to have? Or is the goal more so, I just want to, like you say, live the best that I can. I want to play with my grandchildren. I want to be able to hike a mountain with my kid. Like, those I feel like are realistic goals. So
Absolutely.
yeah, when you say the finish line thing, that's where my mind goes. Okay, my finish line personally is just to stay where I'm at as far as feeling healthy, not blowing up tantrums on my kid, like not yelling at him, being able to be the wife and mom that I need to be and not being exhausted and fatigued. Now, am I at the weight I would want to be? Absolutely not. I could lose another 15 pounds, but is that holding me back? Absolutely not either.
Right.
And like you said, you just keep working. If I figure it out, great. If I don't, still great, because I am 100 times better than what I used to be before. And I think that's a big part to remember too. Okay, so now you're into circadian rhythm, quantum biology. Somebody watching this might be like, "What is that?" I have no idea. Can you describe what do you do as a quantum biology health coach?
So Quantum biology can be a really complicated explanation. I'm going to try and keep it as simple as possible. But it's basically looking at the body on the very smallest scale. So you're looking at the way the body uses electrons. You're looking at the mitochondria and how the mitochondria functions. Circadian health really looks at our internal body clock, our approximately 24-hour body clock, and how light and dark cycles of every day drives these clocks in our body. So, I mean, they're kind of one in the same, or maybe quantum biology or circadian biology sort of is underneath the quantum umbrella, I would say. But yeah, it's to me, I look at quantum biology as going to the very foundation of the way our bodies work and starting from there. And circadian rhythms is so much a part of that. And I kind of wish that I had started there a long time ago, because I used to just be all about, it's the food, it's the food, it's the food. You know, we have to focus on the food. The food is the foundation. And then of course, exercise, you know, cardio and strength training and movement and all these things, which are really, really important. But the way that I see it now is that these quantum principles, these circadian principles, that's the very, very base. And if we can strengthen that and then work our way up, I think it's a lot easier to maintain health and to heal from things that we're dealing with.
That's interesting. Okay, so yeah, we do hear a lot of food as the main driver, is the main thing, like change your food and that'll make a big difference. But you're saying quantum circadian is actually the foundation, and if someone adjusts that, then the next steps would be food, or do you do them all together at the same time? What does that look like?
I mean, ideally, if someone was completely open-minded and they came and they said, hey, I'm going to just do whatever you say, I would recommend that we start with circadian practices, that we just, you know, kind of go way back to the basics, start with circadian practices, start feeling good with that. And then we look at the food. And this doesn't need to be a long, huge process. I mean, this could be like, we're working on circadian practices for a week. And then maybe someone's feeling like, oh, my sleep is a little bit better and we're on the right track. And then I say, okay, let's look at your diet now. What are you eating? Because food is a secondary timekeeper for the body. So it's not that it isn't important. I would never say it's not important. Yeah. But I would say that most people, they might know what a circadian rhythm is, but I don't think that most people understand how important it is, how much it drives our physiology. So that's usually who's coming to me. Oh yeah, I've heard of circadian rhythms. You know, I don't know why that's really important, but tell me about diet. You know, what do I need to do to lose weight? I'm like, okay. So in that case, we will look at their food first, and then I'll try and gently bring them into the world of quantum and circadian.
Yeah. So what would some of the circadian practices look like for somebody who's like, I've heard that word thrown around, I have no idea what it means? What are some basics that they can implement?
Sure. So, I mean, the very basic would be waking up and seeing sunrise. So getting outside and exposing your eyes and your skin just to the natural cycle of light during the day. So in an ideal world, we'd wake up, we'd go outside, we'd face east where the sun is rising. 30 seconds even is good, but just to allow your eyes to take in that signal of that light at that exact time of day. And then again, in our perfect world, we'd be back outside exposing skin and eyes to UVA rise, which is approximately an hour after sunrise. And then we'd be back out for some UVB time where we make, I mean, most people know UVB as what stimulates vitamin D production. So, you know, and then even going back out for sunset, you're getting that signal that it's time to start winding down, exposing the eyes, exposing the skin. We've got photoreceptors in both. And then darkness is actually really important. And that, I think, even people who are a little bit more circadian rhythm savvy, they understand, okay, I need to get natural sunlight. I think there's also a lot of people that don't understand that darkness is equally important. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the basics.
I find it interesting. I started diving into using a lux meter to actually see what that looks like. And it's very fascinating so at night we are very much like shut off all the lights. My kid yells it around all the time. Whenever there's a bright light, he knows mom's like, shut off the lights, shut off the lights. Like I posted a reel about that. I think it was a Trump video or something where he's
Oh,
telling
I
everybody, shut
remember
off the
that.
lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's truly me. Like my mom, she's legally blind. She'll turn on the lights and I'm like, I feel like a vampire.
I know.
But it's good. It's showing my body's reacting when it should be dark right now, right? Like my body's like, whoa, what's that? I normally don't see that at 8 o'clock at night. But anyways, like, so measuring the lux. So at night, like in our bedroom, when I go to the bathroom at night, wash my face and stuff, I usually turn on my bedroom closet because it used to be a pretty dim light. And light bulb died. We just grabbed whatever, and I was like, "Whoa, that's brighter." So I grabbed the lux meter, and it was like 1,000 lux. Now, do you? I don't remember what lux should be. And for those that don't know, you can download a lux meter on your phone for free, and you just face the front forward camera to whatever light you're seeing. I know when I did it outside here in Phoenix, it maxed out. Like it couldn't even measure what the lux was in the afternoon. It was like 80,000 or something like that, whatever the top was. So, do you mind diving into a little bit about lux and the different throughout the day? I don't know,
I
you
I
know.
I don't know exact numbers. I know that at night it
Okay.
really should be below 10, I believe. And so lux
Mm-hmm.
is the intensity. It's the brightness. And we want that brightness during the day because that's, well, we want the brightness, and we want it from blue light that's balanced with all of the rest of the wavelengths of light in the sun, because that is actually what tells our body what time it is. So during the day we want that intensity of light. That's what helps stimulate some cortisol production, keeps us awake. It makes us feel productive and energized. And then as we go through the day, we're getting towards night, that lux should be lower. So we're not getting that intensity of blue light. And that signals our brain, okay, it's time to be winding down. There's other things that need to be happening right now, other functions in the body. We don't need to be making all this cortisol. It's going to be time for melatonin.
Yeah, that makes sense because I know some of my clients that come to me, they'll mention, yeah, I got the blue light blockers and stuff like that. But it's both things. It's not just, blocking the blue light at night. It's also, like you said, the intensity, the lux, how intense is a light. And then during the day, it's not just like I have all these lights around me to have the good lighting for the video, but that's mainly my understanding is it's mainly blue light. It's not the spectrum you would get from the sun. Am I right?
Yes. So the main things that are missing from our indoor lighting, especially like I live in California, so they are making it very difficult to purchase incandescent lights, which I would say would be the best choice of indoor lighting. So what's missing from our LEDs and our fluorescents is infrared, which we can't see, but that's the heat that you feel, and the red
Mhm.
light. And when we don't have that balance, it's almost like getting a little slap in the face. You want the calming of the other colors. You also want the brightness of that blue light, but at the appropriate times of day. So when we say wake up in the morning and we're using our phone as our alarm clock, and maybe we have it just at factory settings, so we haven't played with the brightness. When we turn that phone on and we look at it, it's kind of like a slap in the face and a couple shots of espresso.
Yeah.
Your eyes are receiving this intense blue light that sends a signal to this little part of your brain that's our master clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN. That's the master clock that controls all the clocks in our bodies, from our organ systems down to our cells. So when we get that blast of blue light, that's not what we would be seeing if we had just stepped outside and saw the sunrise. That's a much lower intensity of blue, and it's also balanced with red and infrared. And that's kind of more of a gentle, like, oh, you're waking up and let's start
Yeah.
making some cortisol. This is really nice. Okay, we're going to start getting energized. Instead of like, whoosh.
I've never thought of it that way, but that's very true. And we may not actually like feel that, but it's I think we may feel it in the sense of we don't get the energy. Am I right? Like, because it's a slap in the face, and then people's cortisol are all whacked out back and forth, and then it's just dragging yourself out of bed. You can't wait to get that coffee, like those kind of things, right? So I guess where I'm getting at is what would be symptoms someone may experience where they may need some circadian rhythm practice. I mean, I know everybody needs it, But if they're like, what, this might be my last thing I need, what are some of those symptoms that you would see to tell someone, hey,
Hmm.
let's start working on your circadian rhythm?
I mean, it really affects everything, but I think the most noticeable would be needing an alarm clock to get up in the morning and get out of bed. No matter how much sleep you've gotten, just feeling like you're dragging yourself out of bed,
Mm,
needing a hit of caffeine, whether that's coffee or whatever it is,
yeah.
not feeling hungry in the morning, not wanting to eat breakfast. That can be a pretty strong sign. And it's confusing because we hear a lot that we should fast through breakfast. And maybe that's okay for some people. I think everyone is different, but I think that it's a strong sign of a strong circadian rhythm if you wake up hungry. That's just a natural way to feel in the morning. Some of the other symptoms that I think are pretty common are feeling like you can't get through the day without caffeine, usually in the afternoon. But then in the evening, you feel wired. You feel like, hey, this is my creative time. I've got a second wind and I'm, maybe I'm craving some sweets and I'm going to organize the whole house. That was me.
I laugh because I definitely have that from time to time.
No, I mean,
My
this,
husband's like ready to zonk out and he's like, where did you get the second wind? Oh yeah, I haven't been going outside as much lately. That might be part of it.
yeah. And I think that it's hard for people to understand that our good sleep, our good quality sleep actually starts in the morning. So by not getting that sunrise light, getting jolted awake, having the caffeine throughout the day, who knows what we're eating and snacking on and whatnot, having dinner late after sunset, it's throwing all of these natural rhythms off. The things that our body is supposed to be doing at specific times of day are confused. And so then when we're getting that second wind at night because we've got all the lights on, or maybe we're scrolling on the phone or on the computer or watching TV, and then we're snacking, we're sending this signal to our body that it's daytime and that we're supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
producing cortisol and we're supposed to be creative and we're supposed to be
Yeah.
working, when really we're supposed to be producing melatonin, which is not only important for helping us sleep, but it's also an important part of running our repair processes while we sleep. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that was one of the biggest wake up calls for me with my gut health journey, was that I thought I was a natural night owl. I was like,
Oh,
I'm just a night owl, I'm creative at night. That's when I'm most productive. I can get work done. And it must be just the way that I'm built because I get this second wind. And what was really happening was I was pumping out cortisol. I was not producing melatonin. So even if I got 8 hours of sleep, I was still going to bed after midnight every night. And I'd push the sleep as long as I could, but then that pushes cortisol off and I'm producing melatonin late into the morning. And
yeah.
those repair processes weren't happening. I mean, we were supposed to be um, regenerating our gut lining. I think it's like every 3 to 7 days or something. So that wasn't happening for me for decades because I was a night owl
Yeah.
for most of my life.
Someone who starts putting these practices into play. They start going out for sunrise, for sunset to the best of their ability, and going for UVA and UVB. And you even mentioned you don't have to be spending like your whole lunch break out there. Just go out there for 30 seconds to 5 minutes. I mean, the longer the better.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will say, I don't have time. I'm working. I work in a cubicle, things like that. So someone starts implementing these. What does the time frame look like? I know it's a nuanced question, it's different for everybody, but just like general practice, how soon should somebody start seeing some results?
I personally started feeling results within the first 4 days. And the first thing
Wow.
that I noticed was my sleep improving. I mean, I really thought I was never, ever, ever going to be able to get to bed by 10 o'clock. I mean, that was like really early for me.
Yeah.
It really only took 4 days. That was blocking the blue light at night. I was waking up with an alarm clock to see the sunrise. There was no way I was waking up naturally for that. But after 4 days, I was feeling tired by 10 o'clock at night. Now, I will say it took 9 months for me to start waking up naturally with the sunrise. And
Okay.
I asked, do you know Carrie Bennett? She's good
Yes.
friends with Carrie,
I don't know her
Sarah
personally, but I
Klinger.
know of her. Yeah.
So I'm in her private community. She's an amazing quantum practitioner. And I said, am
Mhm.
I ever just going to wait? I want to be an early bird. Like I want to wake up and just, be ready to start the day. I want to be that
Yeah.
person. And she was like, some people never will be. And it was a week after I asked her that
Mhm.
question that I just boop, started waking up. And it's
That's
not
amazing.
perfect. It's not all the time, but I would say 6 out of 7 days a week, I'm waking up either when the sun is rising or somewhere within the vicinity. And the people who have been willing to implement these practices who I've worked with so far, sleep is definitely the first thing that they notice. And it's usually within a week, maybe two,
Yeah.
but it's usually within a week.
It's amazing because a lot of these people also suffer from either leptin resistance or insulin resistance. And I will tell you my husband's story. He works half the time from home, half the time out in the field. And he has three giant computers, well, two big computer screens plus his laptop screen when he's working from home. And every time I would go in there, like to wish him, like to say good morning, it's like this, like you said, this giant slap in the face. And it's like, oh. But he was always waking up 2 to 3 in the morning and he was struggling with sleep. And his A1C was pre diabetic, even though he wasn't having a buttload of carbs. Like
Right.
he was ketogenic. And his insulin, like it was just the weirdest thing because his insulin wasn't super high either. It was like a 2 or something. And I was just mind blown, like, what's going on? And then we started putting this into practice. And I bought him a pair of quality Viva Rays.
I love these rays.
Because,
They're my favorite.
yeah, I bought a different one. He didn't like it. The screen was kind of distorted. And it was one that, is legit. It wasn't just a random Amazon one. So we returned that one. I was like, all right, Viva Rays is not cheap. We waited till we had enough money in HSA, bought both of us a pair of those. He is now sleeping till 4:30 or 5
That's
and
amazing.
quality sleep.
That's awesome.
Our whole marriage, he has never slept that long, like
Wow.
over 10 years. So something as simple as that, and he's religious with them. He wears them in front of the computer before sunrise. He's got the orange ones on. He doesn't like the red ones, but I'm like, better do what you can. So it's been instrumental. We're curious to see his blood markers in a month or two, and then myself the same. Where you say you don't need an alarm clock. I've been doing this, the very basics, just the sunrise and sunset. That's
Mhm.
like, and the blue light blocking. I mean, I know you can get way deeper with all of this, but just doing that the past couple years, I've noticed summertime, the sun rises around 5 here in the summer, and I'm up and at 'em at that time. Right now, we're in fall, although it doesn't feel like it in Phoenix, but we are in fall. And the sunrise is around 6:20 and I'm waking up 6:15. Like there is nothing I'm changing, no alarm clocks. I'm just naturally waking up between 6 and 6:15 sunrise. So every day I wake up, I go to the bathroom, and then I head outside in my backyard and I do a little stroll in the backyard while the sun's rising
Yeah.
and my morning gratitude and stuff. And it's one of the most peaceful times of my day. Like I love it. And it's become habit. And I think that's what people need to realize, right? Is like just like you brush your teeth, you shower, you feed yourself, like you just got to make this a habit
Yeah.
for your health.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the way it's become for me too. And I've even gotten my husband to go out and he does the sunrise too. He'll look around, he says, so is this good light? Is this good light? I'm like, it's all good light when it's outside. It's all
Oh
good.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the blood sugar, I've noticed, I haven't worn a CGM yet, but I do test fasting glucose. And I've noticed that if I am out later, which I'm not usually, but my daughter plays volleyball, so we'll be in these super brightly lit
Mhm.
gyms, and sometimes it goes later. Or if we go out to dinner and I'm not only in the bright light but eating later, my blood sugar will be often over 100 with no change
Mhm.
in diet the next day. And it's actually, it's easy to find studies that correlate the blue light exposure at night with um, blood sugar dysregulation.
Yeah.
But it's
Well, it makes sense with what you're saying because it's the cortisol and melatonin thing. And if your cortisol's rising, your glucose is going to rise. And
right.
if your brain is getting information that you need to raise the cortisol, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so let's shift a little. So one of the things I get from some clients, like I implement this as well with them, the basics. they will say, well, I have, I'm driving, especially winter, I'm driving to work and it's still dark. And when I come home, it's dark. They need to get ready in the morning. They can't put on their makeup in the dark, things like that. What do you say for those people on how to implement through those hurdles?
Sure. I mean, it is more challenging for sure when you're waking up in the dark and when you're trying to put makeup on.
Yeah.
I just use a low watt light bulb, and I look for either like an amber tinted incandescent Edison style bulb that's maybe 40 watts, or for me that's getting more difficult to find, so I use a brand of LED that is flicker free, because that's also another
Mhm.
issue that we have with our light bulbs is the flicker. But it's flicker free and blue light free, so I will use those. It can be a little bit tricky if you're with certain makeup or certain colors of clothing. Reds and oranges and yellows can be a little bit tricky, so you might want to check once you get out in some normal light. For the car, I don't generally recommend people use blue blockers, but I will say when you get up in the morning, if it's dark, put the orange blue blockers on, as best you can. It's, again, a little tough when you're trying to put makeup on.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
car, you can do, there's some, Viva Rays actually does a really light yellow for daytime. I've used those while driving. I think those are perfectly fine. Yeah.
These are the Viva Rays. Yep.
Yeah.
And then the little clip-ons.
Oh, perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can do that. If you're driving and the sun is coming up while you're in the car, just crack the window. The light will come in, you get the benefits. And actually, while we're on that, a lot of people wear contacts and glasses, and you do need quote unquote naked eyes to get all of the benefits. So if at all possible, I encourage people to try and get some of that light without, before they put their contact lenses in. Or there's a brand, Dailies, that does allow for more of the light spectrum, the
Interesting.
UV, to get in.
Of contact lenses?
Yes, the contact lenses.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
If someone's just wearing glasses, you just, kind of take a break and look over the glasses, get that light. But yeah, when you're inside the car, crack a window. If you're in an office that has windows that open the windows. If you don't have windows that open, just step outside 30 seconds. Just get that light. Okay, you've got it. It's like you're telling your brain, okay, this is what time it is.
Yeah.
And then you're back inside. And then it's the same driving home. If you're driving home and it's sunset, crack the window, and you do your best.
Yep. I think that's really key, is doing the best you can, right? Like if you can find any loophole, like I forget if it was Sarah or somebody talking about getting light breaks. People at work can get smoke breaks. Why can't we go out for 30 seconds and get a light break?
Exactly.
So doing things like that too, I think is important, but not to stress about it, because then that's going to completely make everything worse.
Exactly.
So you just do the best that you can,
Yeah, I did fall into that in the beginning because I was so excited about all the circadian stuff, and someone in my house would turn on the overhead lights at night, and I'm like, what are you doing? Or the refrigerator. Those refrigerator lights are so blue. It's so funny, these things that you notice now.
I know. If I'm going to the fridge at night, it's usually just to put ice in my water, and I will put on my blue light blockers. But I saw somebody else buy like the red filter, like transparent thing, and they cover their light bulbs in their fridge, so it looks like this death, like a Halloween site. Like you open up your fridge and it's this giant red thing. It's hilarious.
I did do that with some orange like cellophane or something that I put over, and my kids were like, no. This is too much. This is weird. Same with the red bulbs. True. I don't do actual red bulbs in here. They were like, this looks evil.
Yeah. Although it's Halloween now, so maybe you can get away with it right now. What's the connection? This was the other part of the question I was going to ask. What's the connection with circadian rhythm and hormones? So some women, they'll do the diet, they'll do, make sure they're getting enough fat and protein, but their hormones just aren't where they should be. And what I've heard is if they are not aligning their circadian rhythm properly, that can impact hormones. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I think one of the most magical times to actually get outside and have your eyes and your skin exposed to natural sunlight is, well, sunrise for sure, but UVA rise. So that UVA light signals hormone production and neurotransmitter production. So it's actually getting that exposure that turns that hormone production on.
Okay.
Everything in the body has a little clock associated with it. So if we're not getting that light, then the hormones don't know that they're supposed to be being made at that time. And for example, serotonin is one of the things that we make during UVA. Serotonin can later be not recycled, but turned into melatonin by the pineal gland in the absence of light. So when we are in darkness, the pineal gland knows then, okay, it's time to make melatonin. And it's the serotonin that we made earlier in the day that gets converted. So the light absolutely affects the hormones. But I will say that even if you are getting your circadian rhythms very, very strong, you're out and you're doing all the things, you still may need extra support. And that's where you come in.
No, exactly. Well, the best that I can. I mean, it's pretty much in the same avenue as you are, where it's the food, the circadian rhythm, things like that. I'm not a quantum biology expert, but I do know these foundations are very instrumental in that. I didn't realize that about the UVA though. I didn't know that that was like the primary hormone time. So that's really good to know. But yeah, I'm like you. I'm not against bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Some people need it.
Yeah.
I heard Dr. Amy Horniman mention people that are against it, or they're like, oh, it's ancestrally, we didn't use them, whatever it was. Well, if you have a child who is insulin dependent, perhaps they're type 1 diabetic, insulin's a hormone. Mm-hmm. Your body's supposed to make it. Are you going to say no because that's not ancestral? No, you're not.
Right.
We want to be as similar to our ancestors as possible. But realistically, in the time that we live in right now, there are other forces against us that we need to work with. Like, I can't help where I live that there is a 5G tower right there. Like, that the EMFs, my mom lives with me, so I can't shut off the Wi-Fi at night because she's watching TV. Like, so there's things, those are the battles that I can't pick right now. It's just like, okay, it is what it is. So I do whatever else I can to help. And I mean, so like, entering into my 40s, I'm watching my hormones. They are starting to go down slowly, but it's not anything drastic. Like, it's just, okay, this is the time. Like, I'm doing everything else I can. I mean, you can spend thousands of dollars trying to figure out root cause and you may never get there. So yeah, I feel like I could talk on that stuff forever.
I know. Well, and I love that you brought up, because I love the idea of trying to live as close to our ancestors the way that they may have lived as we can, being close to nature, doing the grounding, doing the light, all the things. But the reality is we live in this modern world and there's no escaping it. We're not going to go off and live in the forest. And even if we did, there's probably still cell towers around us. There's satellites. There's all kinds of things going on that we can't control. So we do the very best that we can. And yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that it's amazing that we have these things that we can use to support our systems when we need to. And I think that if we are putting these foundations in place, we're giving the body what it needs in order to function the way that it's supposed to the best of our ability. It may not be enough. And that's where these things can come in. So, it's the same with supplements. I used to be a supplement junkie. I can't even tell you the bins of supplements
I hear you.
that I have. And I am not against supplements, but I was using them, I think, almost in the way that we use allopathic medicine. It was like replacing medication with supplements. And so I've really tried to tone down the supplements and only use what I think that I need for that period of time. It's not just this ongoing piles of, okay, I'm going to take this and this and this and this, but I'm grateful that they're there. I think that they serve a purpose at specific times for specific reasons. And it's the same, in my opinion, with the exogenous hormones.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I totally relate with that with the supplements. I mean, I still, from time to time, I'm like, hey, look at this protocol. It should help with fill in the blank that I'm struggling with. Let me try it. And sometimes it does something, sometimes it doesn't. But that's been my thing over the past few months too, is toning down. What do I actually need? My body right now needs a lot of magnesium. I have realized, like, I'm working on that. So I'll do like high dose magnesium from time to time. High dose is not super high, but high for me.
Yeah.
And then, I wish we could touch upon the vitamin D supplementation thing too. I know that's an interesting one with circadian, but I think we might go a little over. But I'll do a vitamin D from time to time. And then just right now I'm working on gut health. So certain, butyrate, sodium butyrate, PC, phosphatidylcholine, those kind of things, really helping with the cell membrane, which
Right.
goes along with that. So awesome.
And actually, you just reminded me of something. One of the key changes that I made for my gut was actually exposing my belly to sunlight, which sounds so ridiculously simple, but it's something that I never did. And I think that there's probably many women that can relate to this. It's such a vulnerable area. And if you are not comfortable in your body, that's not the place that you're going to expose to the sun. And I never, ever did. But exposing our skin, exposing our belly to natural sunlight, again, that UVA, UVB, it does actually impact our microbiome. So I started doing it every single day, and it has made such a difference. Our microbiome changes with the seasons, with the time of day even. So that has become a huge part of my gut health routine.
I love that. I never thought of that. There were times that I would do that, and I'm like, because I know you absorb more vitamin D on like the bigger parts of your body. So like if you're exposing your stomach, your trunk, your thighs, your back, you're going to absorb. So that was where I was going, but I didn't realize it impacts it. What kind of things did you notice that it improved?
I can just eat and not have to run to the bathroom. It's like the biggest thing. I would get so nervous and worried going out to dinner. I mean, before starting all of the circadian stuff, even on Carnivore, I'm like, okay, I don't know how this is going to go. Even if I just order a plain steak, nothing on it, I could still end up having problems. And it's embarrassing. It's painful. It was just awful. Exposing my belly to sunlight, and then also really blocking the blue light at night and not eating at night. That was something that was a lifelong habit for me that was really, really hard to break. I would eat at night. Yeah. So the sun on the belly, blocking the blue light, not eating at night, those were huge. But I did specifically notice a difference from having the sunlight on my belly. And I noticed in the winter, because I live in the mountains, we get, 20 feet of snow outside. Not even exaggerating.
No, I've seen the pictures. It's legit.
Yeah. So I am not getting the sun on my belly during the winter, but I will use a red light therapy panel, which is, I mean, I wouldn't say it's equal to sunlight, but I think it's a really useful tool.
Yeah. That was actually one of the things I was going to ask about was the red light. Like I know it's become a big thing now. People are getting the panels. I personally go to this place by me that has like red light, cold therapy, PEMF, like all the things. When is the ideal time, if there is an ideal time, to use red light therapy?
I think that you can really use it. Do you mean during the day or?
Yeah, like time of day.
I think after the sun is up, you can use it anytime during the day. I just wouldn't use it after the sun has set because the panels are really bright. So we get into lux again. So that intensity can be disruptive for some people. Not everybody. Some people aren't bothered by it. But I generally recommend that people do it during the day at some point.
Yeah. I mentioned that because I learned about it after the one time I did red light right before sunset. That was the only time I could get there. And I was like, ooh, the sun's setting. Let me go before. And that night's sleep was horrible. It was not good for me because they have like the big beds.
I've seen you post that, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's when you talk, and I mean, I have the glasses on, but like you said, we have photoreceptors on our skin. And so it was so hard to sleep that night. And my body, by the time I walked out, it was dark. Yeah. So I wouldn't doubt if that was part of it in that sense. I haven't gone at night again since then because literally the next day I learned about that and oh wow, I heard somebody's podcast. Oh, okay. Not after sunset. Yes. Marked. Noted. I will not do that again.
And I think with all of these things, it's just experimentation. Some people may not be bothered by it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. And I know it's helpful for like other things, body aches, sprains, like it's just a great healing modality.
Absolutely. I actually have, it's called a torch. It looks like a little flashlight, but it's the red light therapy. And because it's battery operated, you can actually put it right on your skin. So when we have, and it comes with a little, I don't even know what you'd call it. It's this little attachment. So you can use it like in your ear, or you can shine it in your throat. And I was just hearing the woman who makes them, Kelly Bento, I was just hearing her in Carrie's community yesterday. And she was saying that her son had woken up and his tonsils were swollen, and she could see in it, just was looking really infected and not good. And so they used the torch, the red light with the attachment, and shined it right on his tonsil. And she said a little while later, he was like, wow, I feel so much better. The pain is so much better. And she looked at it and she said the inflammation was down. So yeah, we have ours. I've used that for earaches, headaches, skin issues, if you have like little rashes or even pimples that come up. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Incredible. And what was the name of that you said?
So Kelly Bento is the one who has created this line of red light therapy panels. And she's the only person that I recommend at this point. I love her and I trust her so much. She tests every single panel before she ships them out. And her company is called Solewell.
Okay. Solewell. Cool. I'm going to write that down because, with an 8-year-old who's constantly involved in things and getting sick and I like to have those kind of tools handy to get him better, or any of us as a parent.
Yep.
You know that you don't have much time to spare to be sick. So those tools are really helpful to have on hand. One other thing I wanted to touch upon was, I know the light is the biggest part of circadian rhythm and quantum biology, but I've heard a lot about like EMFs and that realm too. So maybe you can touch a little bit upon that. How does that impact our physiology, our cells? What can we do about it? Maybe just a little snippet about that.
Sure. So EMS, it's electromagnetic frequencies basically. And it's things, it comes off of things like our cell phones, anything with Bluetooth capability, even our electrical appliances, the wiring in our walls, like anything that's electrical can give off EMFs. And it's basically a light that we can't see with our eyes, but our body perceives, and it can be very stressful on our nervous system. And it does actually impact the way that the cells function. And I won't get totally into that, but it does have an impact on cellular function. Yeah. So I think really what people need to know is that it is a stressor. So I think when we think of stress, we think of like, oh, I'm so stressed out, I'm in traffic, and it's the stress that you can feel, and you're agitated. But there's other stressors that we don't necessarily notice. It's like there's just sort of filtering in, but they affect us in ways that we feel later. For some people, it can be chronic headaches or fatigue or body aches or trouble sleeping. There's just, really anything can be from EMF exposure. We have cell phone towers all around us now, so it's pretty hard to avoid. But there are things that you can do to help mitigate it in your home, and some things even when you're out. So I know you were saying like you can't turn the Wi-Fi off because of your living situation, and I know that's the case for a lot of people. In my house, and my kids do not like this, but I have my Wi-Fi on a timer. So at 11 o'clock, which is later than I would like it to be, I would like it to go off earlier, but my compromise is 11 p.m. The Wi-Fi shuts off, and that's it.
Is this like a plug-in that you use? Because that I could totally do.
Yeah. It's like a cheap little thing you can order off Amazon. You set it to the time that you want it on, and it's just plugged into the wall, and then you plug the Wi-Fi into the timer. And so
okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, it goes off at 11. I think it comes back on at 6 or 6:30 in the morning. So at least during sleep, we're not, being bombarded with the Wi-Fi. There's other things that you can do, like unplugging appliances when they're not in use, not having things plugged into your bed, right by your head, not having a charging cell phone by your head. Most people are using their phones as alarm clocks. So there's two reasons why it's not good: that light in the morning, and then also the EMF exposure while you're sleeping. So if possible, having the phone out of the room, put it on airplane mode, or just at least as far away from your head as possible. And then there's places that sell EMF shielding clothing. I don't know how effective those things are, but it can't hurt. And then there's things that you can do, like just going outside and grounding during the day, which I always thought that sounded very hippie woo woo.
Yeah, yeah.
But there is actual science behind it. And there's some pretty cool studies that you can really easily look up where they have shown images of people, and I think it's thermography that kind of shows inflammation in the body before grounding. And then after, I think it's like 40 minutes of grounding. So grounding would be just touching your bare skin to any natural surface. So that would be dirt, grass, sand, even rocks. Like where I live, I'm surrounded by granite. So I go and I walk on granite rocks. You can literally hug a tree. You can be a tree hugger. You can touch a plant as long as it's planted in the ground. Standing in water, going in the ocean, being in a lake, like all of those things are grounding. And we're actually gathering free electrons from the earth. And that's how we gain energy in our bodies, electrons for everything. So yeah, that's just another way to kind of mitigate some of the harmful effects of all of the EMF that we're surrounded by.
I love that you didn't name, I mean, granted, there was like the clothing and stuff, but that wasn't the prime way to mitigate it. Like a lot of this stuff that we've talked about today is essentially free besides the blue light blocking glasses. But even blue light blocking glasses, that's only if you feel you can't like you actually want to watch TV, you can't break yourself away from it, or, you know, for example, the time you work, but there's nothing else really you need to spend money on to improve your health. It's just a matter of changing habits, which I love that. Yeah. And the Wi-Fi timer, I will spend money on that because,
and it's not expensive. I mean, it's a really inexpensive little tool.
Yeah. So that's an easy one to do. No one's awake at night. And I mean, if your kids are up at midnight on the Wi-Fi, tough luck. Like they shouldn't be anyways. You care about their health. Like
exactly.
Shut it off.
Homework needs to be done long before 11.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So, I mean, we didn't really get too much into the running stuff today, but we'll have to do another one sometime to see like, how do you incorporate, like, I mean, you basically said you're carnivore. Do you change anything? I guess I will ask you today. Do you change anything when you are doing a long distance run or anything? What does that look like?
So I would say, I mean, one thing I should add too is that my diet changes with the seasons. So I am always meat-based. I am always low carb, but I go through periods of being in ketosis and then periods when I'm not. And so the running is kind of the same. You know, in the summer, I actually did an experiment with a coach that I hired, adding in a bunch of fruit and honey, and that was interesting. That can be a discussion for another time. But I did find kind of my carb tolerance, but summer is really the only time that I will bring in fruits and things like honey. And it's, now I know, in very limited quantities. But with running, it's kind of the same thing. And I treat it the way that I do the season. So it just depends on what I'm doing, how I'm feeling, and what my goals are. So if I am in training and I'm doing a really long run for a long race, I will have some carbs, but I try to keep it minimal. And I usually wait until I'm further into the run. And it'll be from things like, not fruit, because fruit might mess with my stomach, but like carnivore bar. I actually melted down a carnivore bar and I added a little bit of extra honey to it. So that was my little bit of extra carb. Now in the race that I just did, which was a 24-hour 1 mile loop. So you run this 1 mile loop as many times as you can in 24 hours. So I ended up doing 40 miles, and during the day it was 90 degrees. It was totally exposed. I was so hot and I just wanted some junk. And so I kind of knew I was going to want some junk. And so I brought with me the best versions of junk that I could find, which was some potato chips that are made with avocado oil. And then we have a local bakery that makes little gluten-free treats. And so I brought some gluten-free chocolate chip cookies, and those were my treats. So it's a lot more carb than I would ever normally have on a day-to-day basis, but it was not nearly as much carb as most endurance runners are taking in. So,
well, you were just burning that right off.
Yeah. I mean, it was,
there's no bad ingredients necessarily in it. So then it's just a matter of the blood sugar aspect and burning it off. I mean, I know there's circadian stuff too, but I feel like that's one of the things that we pick and choose our battles, you know, like okay, this is one time. You're not doing this all the time, and then if you do feel negative about it, then you can change it in the future.
Well, and
Yeah.
going back to the goals and like, what's the finish line? Like I said before, there's no finish line for me, but one of my goals is to be metabolically flexible. I want to feel like I'm a resilient
Yeah.
person. I want to know that if I am exposed to, bright blue light at 10 o'clock at night because I'm out watching my daughter play volleyball, or we're celebrating, we're having a dinner, or, whatever it is, maybe I'm exposed to more plastic chemicals than I would normally be. I want my body to be resilient enough to be able to process the light,
Mm-hmm.
the toxins, whatever it is. And the same with the metabolic flexibility. I want to be able to burn both fat and glucose for fuel. And I happen to feel better staying more on the carnivore ketovore side, but I want to have the ability to do both. And so
I love this. I love it. I love it. That's a perfect place to end. I agree with you 100%. And people that hear that metabolic flexibility, we're not saying to, have a giant plate of pasta and then the next day go back to keto carnivore. This is like, I want to have my apple or my seasonal fruit or the sweet potato with Thanksgiving dinner, the healthy one ingredient whole food that is not ultra processed, right? And then go right back. And I do that as well. I will use it strategically with my cycle where I will incorporate a small apple or orange. Now, I haven't gotten into the seasonal fruits. I would love to learn more about that at some point,
pretty
or the
awesome.
seasonal foods.
Yeah.
What was that?
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It just feels more natural. It's like your body is ready for it. If you're
Yeah.
doing all the circadian things, you've primed your body to be able to have some seasonal fruit. And this is not everybody. I mean, obviously all of these things are totally nuanced. It depends on the
Yeah.
person, the situation, but in that, ideal situation where we're resilient and we have a strong circadian rhythm and things are kind of in balance and we're feeling good, I don't think that there's anything wrong with having some seasonal produce
No,
that's locally grown to
no.
you.
Yeah, I think that's great. Awesome. I've loved having you. This has been a great conversation. And I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of people who have been doing all the diet and nutrition things and are like, I just want to work on the next step, which for you, I guess is the other way around. But most people in this space have already been doing the food because that's what comes to their mind. So, oh, I hear the doggies. They're like,
Sorry.
Mom, time. So maybe Miley, can you just tell people where they can find you if they want to follow you on Instagram, or maybe if they want to work with you and your coaches?
Sure.
Just give us a little of that information.
Yeah, so the only social media that I'm on is Instagram, and that is Health Coach Mais, Mais. It's an old nickname, and that's the easiest way to find me. If anyone wants to talk about working together, they can send me a message through Instagram or email me. I can give you my email, and then I have a very simple website too that gives just kind of some basic information on what I offer as a coach.
Well, great. I'll link that in the description down below so you guys can check that out. Again, thanks for being here. I've loved talking with you. I still love talking to you in the DMs. So I'm just really grateful. And everybody, thanks for joining here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next one. Have a great day.
Hi, thank you.